Thanks. I appreciate it. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening around the world. My name is Doug Brunke. I'm the founder and CEO of Global Chamber. Today is our monthly global sales conversation, and what a better topic to have. It's one topic that we all are involved with, and fortunately today we have an expert, Dan Hinman, who's going to walk us through one of the most important topics that we'll have as salespeople, and that is how in the world can we develop a network of trusted referral partners and actually get them to do something? It's one thing to have a group of people who you like and they like you and everybody's happy and let's have a big group hug and that's all great. But how does that actually result in sales? And how many people who have those kinds of networks actually get results from them? Dan, I think it's probably pretty low. And so that's why this one is a really important topic. You're an expert on that. Dan is fractional sales leader and sales leadership coach at Sales Acceleration. He's based in the UK. He's going to provide us a workshop today where you will learn how to build strong trust-based referral relationships, how to focus efforts on partners who add value, and how to create beneficial long-term partnerships that drive growth for both sides. And that's the win-win that we love to see. So Dan, without further ado, what would you like to cover today? What does it look like? Are you going to give a presentation? And how would you like to field questions?
Sure. Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for that introduction. I don't know if I would consider myself an expert, but I can share with you certainly some best practices that I follow, and my colleagues, which I see some of them are on the call today, can certainly chime in as well. Questions come up in the chat or at the end. It really doesn't make a difference. I'm very flexible with questions. And as Doug pointed out, today we're going to talk about how do we accelerate growth, by building this trusted referral partner network. What does it entail? How do we do it? What are kind of the key elements and the importance of a trusted referral partner network? So let me share my screen. I've got about 15 or 16 slides. Feel free to interrupt me along the way, and we can leave room for questions at the end.
Beautiful. Looking forward.
Okay, there. Does everybody see it?
It looks magical.
Okay, wonderful. So as Doug pointed out, I'm associated with Sales Acceleration. I have my own practice called Spinnaker Global Advisors, and I'm a fractional sales leader and sales leadership coach. I'm based here in the UK, but let me just switch to the next slide, and I'll tell you a little bit about my journey, and then we'll get into why this is so important to me. Okay, so I'm an American, as you can tell. Grew up in Boston. I lived in London for about 17 years. And truthfully, I spent the most of my career with corporate business, Pitney Bowes, 29 years to be exact with that company. So I've started in the sales organization, carrying a bag, going knocking door to door with businesses, and moved to sales management. Then I switched into marketing management when I got my MBA. And then at one point, I was given an opportunity to come to the UK with Pitney to lead sales and marketing for the UK business. And I thought that was great. I brought my wife and two young children at the time, and we came to live in London. And that was a fantastic experience. But I grew up in sales and then switched to marketing. And this was the first opportunity for me to really kind of work both sides of the equation and develop that collaboration. I ended up going back to New York for a little bit with Pitney as a general manager for a services business. Spent about 4 or 5 years doing that. And then later, around 2016, I was asked to come back and lead sales and marketing for Pitney through Europe. So UK, Ireland, France, Germany, the Nordics, Italy, and so forth. And that was a fantastic opportunity. And then they said, okay, time to come back again, go back to the US. And at that point, I was 29 years with the company. I loved London. I loved Europe. And I decided to leave the company, and they gave me a nice package. And so I thought, I've got all this experience in sales and sales management and marketing. I can, establish my own business and go out there and start helping people and helping other companies. And so I did establish my own business, Spinnaker Global Advisors, but I struggled. I really struggled because I didn't know anything about networking. I didn't know anything about referral partners. And I was really struggling on how do I go out and get business and get my name out there and build my brand. Um, well, sales acceleration came along at one point and said, Dan, we're looking for people like you, 25, 30 years experience, join our organization and focus on small and medium sized businesses. And so we work with, owners, founders, CEOs of these smaller businesses, and we build kind of a sales operating system for them. But one of the most important things that sales acceleration taught me was how to build my business, how to go out there and really build a network. Networking to me up until this point, if you looked at my LinkedIn profile and my contacts back then, were all just people I used to work with. I really didn't have this intention of building my network and seeking trusted referral partners. And so they taught me really carefully how to do that and the importance of doing that. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. Some of it might be a little bit basic for those who have been in business for a long time, but sometimes a reminder might be good, and you might jot down and say, "Hey, I should be doing that type of stuff." So let's begin. I basically talked about this and already. Where did I start? How do I market myself? Where do I find clients? Again, I do very little about networking. Didn't know anything about trusted referral partners, how to reach them, and so we're going to talk through that. So here's the agenda. Things we're going to cover. The objectives are really teach you how to cultivate these strong relationships with these partners, with people who are like-minded professionals, similar to you. How to define and focus your efforts, on those people who really bring value to the relationship, who can help you build your business. And the result here is going to be a win-win, because you really have when you talk about a partnership or a referral partnership, it is a win-win. It's two ways. So we're going to walk through these 5 steps. And again, if you have questions along the way, Doug, maybe you can just keep an eye out for the chat, and I'll be happy to stop along the way. We're going to talk about how to define your targeted customer, defining your ideal referral partner that supports your same ICP, which is the ideal client profile. You want people that are very closely aligned with the types of businesses you're wanting to work with. So how do you define those people? How do you find those people? We'll talk a little bit about an outreach strategy. What are the messages? What do I talk about? How do I reach out to them? Some best practices around meeting cadence. How often should you stay in contact? And the key components of building a long-term relationship with them. Okay, so step 1, defining your target customer to share with your referral partners. And this is what I find today so important. When I speak to referral partners, or I speak to people who are other fractionals, whether they're fractional CFOs or CMOs, they often don't have a very clear definition of their ideal client profiles. It sometimes doesn't come off the tip of their tongue quickly. And so it's really, really important that we, myself and you, give that clarity to who you're wanting to work with, and who you serve, so they can really understand that and keep you top of mind. The better the chances are of you defining that specific ICP, the better chances of them introducing you to people, throughout their work. Okay, so developing your ideal client customer profile. So what's an ICP? An ICP is a detailed description of the type of client who is the perfect fit for your business services or products, right? So it's the industry that they're in, the vertical, the targeted organizations, the revenue, the type of revenue, the size of revenue. I work particularly with smaller businesses, and I'll share with you my ICP as an example. But looking at how many years they've been in business and the location, all critical components and elements of really helping to define that. So for example, here's my ICP. I'll share briefly as soon as I get this out of my way. Okay. Oops. Sorry. Okay. My ICP is B2B companies within all industries. My expertise is technology sector, but hardware, software, and SaaS. I spent a few years in the consulting industry, primarily on finance and business transformation, along with change management. And my typical focus is working with owners, founders, and CEOs of small businesses with annual revenues of between $1 million and $50 million or pounds. Um, um, I work with all hardware, software, SaaS-based industries, cybersecurity, family-owned businesses, furniture businesses. I'm working with a home security business and a construction company and a few others. So many of these businesses have been in business for 3 to 5 years, and generally they're located in London or kind of outside the London area. I have some larger customers that go up to maybe half a billion, 500 million in revenue outside of London, and a couple that I'm working with and talking to in the northeast part of the US. But those are the things that kind of define my ideal ICP in terms of the types of clients. Let's go to the next slide. The next step is your buyer persona. What is the ideal buyer persona? Who do these people look like? So it's important that your referral partner knows that persona, the people that are going to hire you for your services. And so the buyer persona is a person in the company who has the need and the decision-making authority to utilize and buy what you're offering. So it's important to communicate the title, the responsibilities, and most importantly, the pain points. This is often something that when I have conversations with potential referral partners or current referral partners, they don't talk about those pain points. They don't tell me what I should be looking for to help them. So as an example, is my typical buyer persona. Owners, founders, and CEOs, and they often lead sales. Sometimes they're the only salesperson, or they might want to add 2 or 3 salespeople to their team. But they're often struggling with growing revenue. And that's really consistent with the vision of the company. Typically, they started this business and they've seen some rapid growth in their industry and along with their business, but now they might have plateaued. And they just don't know where to get to that next level and how to continue to grow. So revenues are flattened or are starting to decline. There's an erosion of their margins and their profitability. They're seeing greater competitive pressure in the industry. And often these owners or founders, they're the go-to person for everything in their business. They get involved with all the deals. They get involved with every business event, any business issue. They help develop the products. They lead the product development. They handle customer issues. They pretty much do everything for the company. And they're running around, probably not doing a lot of them very well. So the key thing there is they're spending less and less time with their families. So those are the types of people, these buyers, that I'm looking for. And I try to explain that to my ideal referral partners. So when they come across those issues or those characteristics, they think, hey, I know a guy. His name is Dan. He might be able to help you. Okay, next. Here's a matrix that we use to kind of map out ideal profiles. So typically we'd run this session in a workshop. So I'd work with the people in the workshop. We start listing the industries, we start listing the verticals, the revenue ranges, and we start to build who are those people? What are those titles as ICP, as buyer personas, and help them really work that through. It's a great exercise. And if you don't do this today, I would, take this sheet and really start to map it out and get some clarity. It's so critically important to be able to communicate effectively to your referral partners and for them to be able to help you. The other thing that this does is really plays into the messaging. The messaging as you start to reach out to potential referral partners. This goes right into that messaging and in your outreach campaigns and all of your marketing efforts. So definitely an exercise that's worth doing. Okay, that was step one. Now step two, ideal referral partners. So your network contacts that will introduce you to your clients. That's the key. So think of types of fractional or specialized services that your ideal customer profile that serve your ideal customer profile. So these are some of the common areas that I find that serve small and medium-sized businesses. So operations people in information technology or sales, or other fractionals or exit planners and brokers. That's a great one. Leadership and business coaches. These are all people who most likely have a really good relationship with your buyer personas. And making contact with these types of people can really benefit from you. You can really benefit from that. Okay, next. One of the areas we look in is fractional service providers. They provide great contacts for us as we build it, and there are several organizations. Most of these listed here, just as an example, are in the U.S. Some of them are in the U.K. But business operating systems like EOS, which is the entrepreneurial operating system, there are EOS implementers out there that are working with owners to try to help them structure their business and provide a structured operating system to turn the business around. Those people know what's going on with sales, for instance. They know some of the challenges those owners are having. So for me to reach out to those types of people, explain my value proposition, what I'm looking for, what I do, and really understand how I can help them is critical. And the same goes with many of these other organizations, whether they're fractional CFOs, finance organizations, or other types of marketing, partner organizations, just as an example. Okay, this is the tricky part. The question is how long does this take? How long can I expect if I follow this process? How long can I expect to really build a trusted network? And on the slide here, it says you'll need to reach out to 200 or so contacts. I tell you, when I started, it was well over 400. Well over 400. It was reaching out to a lot of people I thought could be potential referral partners. And it's a matter of narrowing that group down to really your top 15 or 20. So 200 plus contacts, it's going to take maybe 50 to 70, 25 or 30% to get to a meeting, to get to have a discussion with them. And then from there, working that number down to roughly 15 or so key partners. For me, it took well over 400. Some people might have a great network. I did not have a good network. As I said in the beginning, I was sort of starting out as new, but you can expect a lot of activity in the beginning, but it's absolutely worth it. And the goal is to get to that small group of 15 to 20 people who know you intimately, you know them intimately, or serving your same ICPs, and you can share and build a trust with them. Here's just quickly how to kind of scope out your initial outreach campaign, from an A, B, C, how to categorize them. I'd put them in buckets as you meet people, as you talk to people and you reach out to people. The A contacts, these will proactively generate leads for you, and lead to revenue generation. So we talk about the follow-up, how important it is for those people, if you to really connect with those people and follow up on a regular basis. Then you're going to have the next set, which, they have a volume of potential prospects. It's still unclear, but they could generate some revenue. Maybe they're not really closely associated with your ICPs, but still, follow up is critical. Within a week, schedule a meeting within a month, and then you're going to have the bottom third, which maybe not tied directly to your ICP. They're good people. You like talking with them. Be careful because you can waste a lot of time talking to people who don't serve your ICP. But it's challenging, and having a follow up, keeping in contact with them, maybe scheduling follow up in the next couple of months is really, really important. But I think the purpose of this slide is to think about how do I segment all of my contacts and my outreach into those that look really favorable all the way to those that look less favorable. And it's a worthy practice to follow. Okay. So how to determine the key partners? You got to have a level of trust. And the trust has to be very, very strong. So you're looking for a partner who has deep relationships and they can credibly refer you in. Those are the partners who have contacts that are connected to the key decision makers, marrying up to your buyer personas, and those that have a level of influence that they work with. So it's really important to think about as you critique and map your contacts and put them into these buckets. Where do they fall? Are they closely married to these definitions? They have a good volume of ICP targets, so very similar ICP to you. There's, for my example, they're focused on small and medium-sized businesses, revenues of maybe 2 to 50 million, and they're in a variety of industries. The partner should really have sufficient reach or client volume with your ICP to make it valuable. So questioning and helping to determine what their network looks like, who they work with, are all really important questions in your initial meetings. So asking those deeper questions about the relationships. And it's also important to say, are you still working with these clients? Or, what are some of your clients you've worked with in the past? How long have you known them? This will really give you some key indicators as to how much of your time you're going to invest and how important these potential referral partners could be to you in the future. Again, thinking about how do I get it down to that 12 to 15, maybe 20 key people that I'm going to build a really structured and sound relationship with. And similar to the other matrix, here's one for referral partners, and it's quite simple to follow. That upper left-hand corner where that person has a high trust to their clients, they have a high volume of contacts that are really associated with your ICP. Those are the people you want to focus on. So the green, that is the go. That's on the go list. You want to really work those people and work those relationships as best you can. The yellow, you don't want to rule out the yellow. They have, lower volume of contacts, but you can still have high trust. I would still stay in contact with them. I'd still try to build strong relationships and, have a good cadence of meetings, maybe once or twice a month, just checking in, seeing what's happening. The orange and red, I think initially for me, which probably where I made some mistakes is I didn't rule them out. But I would say going forward, those are places to rule out. You need to be cautious. If they have low trust in clients or you haven't really understood if they have trust with the clients, you need to be cautious, be a little skeptical, maybe set them up on a monthly or quarterly newsletter just to kind of keep you top of mind. But again, don't invest a lot of time with those types of people. Okay, so now we talk about how do we reach out to them. And so here's a map that just kind of shows typical outreach strategy. We're reaching out via email or LinkedIn. LinkedIn for me has been a fabulous tool, absolutely fabulous for a variety of reasons because I can get to learn a lot about potential referral partners before I even reach out to them. Look at their connections, look at where they've worked, the types of businesses they're in, the types of publications that they've put out, newsletters, and so forth. So that really helps me. It's a great research tool. But typically, once I've made those initial outreaches, either via email or LinkedIn, I'd point them to a landing page. And I recommend you think about building a referral partner landing page. And I'll show you what mine looks like. But this kind of encapsulates all the conversations you've had about who your ICP is, what your buyer personas, who your buyer personas are, what the key pain points are. And it's one page with a link that I follow up after that conversation. I say, here's a link to my referral partner page. It'll just clarify some of the things we discuss and help you as you start networking and so forth. Sometimes that leads to a meeting request if I haven't already talked to them or more information, and then it gets me to an initial meeting. So I use the landing page sometimes before to try to get their interest, and I use the landing page sometimes after we've had that initial discussion. Email messaging, it's critical, short and sweet. Less is more. It's more important to be valuable and concise than it is to be lengthy and wordy and generalist. So focus a message on connecting to build your network. Really important. That's a key theme in all the outreach messages. I'm looking to build a network. I'm not looking to go out and get business and see who you can refer me to. I'm looking to build a partnership and a trust. Share your high-level vision of the partnership, explain to them what that really means. Again, it's not selling. Coming from a sales background and having sales acceleration, is part of my title and my company. People immediately think I'm going to try to sell them something. And so I work really hard to not focus it on a sales conversation, but really focus it on a learning conversation where I can learn about them and really figure out how I can support them, to help them become successful. So that goal there is really to get a one-to-one meeting, and then again, having that dedicated landing page just kind of enhances the conversation or enhances your initial outreach by explaining further detail as to what you do and who you work with. LinkedIn messaging, you know, if I'm sure most people today are using LinkedIn messaging, to me, it's been just, a focus for me. I'm probably on it 5 or 6 hours a day when I'm not working with other clients. But it's a really, really critical tool, and I find a tremendous benefit in it. Um, and I would always, same types of messages with LinkedIn, and it's just an alternative to your email. Here's just simple messaging as an example, that I use and I find successful, particularly the first one, where I would say, "Hi, I'm Dan Hinman. I work with many business owners, helping them with sales and sales leadership. And I often see gaps outside of sales that are not my expertise. I need a resource I can rely on to introduce to my clients when needed." And you're initially saying you want to find them as a resource. You're not trying to sell them something. You want to know, understand their business and use them as a potential referral to your clients. And that's one that's really been beneficial for me. Um, I've also used a variation of the next one, whereas, "Hi, I'm Dan Hinman. I see we're both located in London. I notice our backgrounds align, and I'd like to connect and learn more about what you do to explore potential opportunities for collaboration." Really, again, trying to figure out how we might collaborate in helping each other's business. So I found that those types of messages and different variations of them attract the most interest, versus just asking, "Do they have time? I'd like to explain my business and what I do," and so forth. Just a suggestion. And I mentioned this earlier, the importance of a landing page. If you haven't got one, I think it's been really critical for me because, again, I introduce it sometimes in an outreach message, but I also follow it up after a call, just as a refresher as to what we talked about. And so I'll show you just what my landing page looks like as an example. It's actually 2 slides, but it's one page. So the top half of the slide here just really talks about the services and the solutions that I provide. It has a link to my website. It has a video they can see on YouTube about my company, about what we do for my company. And then the next slide, if I can get to that, at the bottom of the same page, talks about my targeted profile, talks about the client challenges that I work to resolve. And it, again, reinforces the service offerings. So I call this a referral partner landing page. And I tell them after the conversation, I'd like to send them a link to this referral partner landing page. And I can tell you many, many times they've come back to me saying, "That's a great idea. I'm going to build one of those for myself." So, I wanted to share that with you. I think it's been a very helpful tool. Okay. Staying top of mind is critical, absolutely critical with your partners. I've heard when I joined Sales Acceleration, I was asking a lot of our advisors. There's about 230 advisors in sales acceleration across the US and Australia, Canada, and the UK. And I spoke to many of them and saying, "Can you give me some lessons learned on how to go out and build your network, build your practice?" And many times they said to me, "I didn't follow up often enough with my initial contacts. And it's something I regret doing." And so it's really important you get focused on trying to find new contacts. You can't forget about the contacts you've already made and staying top of mind with them. So, a monthly newsletter is great. I have one called Dan's Sales Accelerator. I send it out every month to any of my contacts, and it's educational. It's not, again, trying to sell them something. It's talking about best practices in sales training or best practices in developing a forecast. It's educational information. And again, it's all about staying top of mind with them. So when they find an opportunity, they think, "Hey, I know a guy, his name is Dan." Social media, emails, sometimes a gift for a referral. It makes a big impression with people. "Thank you so much for introducing me to that owner. Here's a bottle of wine." Um, and just continuing having that meeting and making sure those messages are as personalized as you possibly can. I think a lot of the discussion with your referral partner is about how can I help you? How can I really learn about your business and what you're looking for? And making sure that you show a real lot of interest in them. The meetings I have, initial meetings on these outreach, sometimes can be 30 or 45 minutes. And truthfully, I'll spend the first 30 minutes just asking about their business, asking about their challenges. What can I do to be helpful? Who are the types of clients you're looking for? Can you send me some information about your services that I can keep in my bag as I find clients who might have those needs? And usually then at the last 10 minutes or so, I say, wait a minute, tell me about your business. And so we'll, sometimes have a follow-up discussion. But it's really important to, again, not sell and not try to show them all the things you know about your business, but to show some genuine interest in what they do. Meeting cadence. So you have that initial conversation, you're trying to add value. And here's an example, what you would start with, right? The purpose of the meeting is to get to know each other better, to understand how we serve our clients, explore ways we can add value to each other's network. My goal is to build relationships with trusted professionals, and I can confidently introduce to my clients. It's really important, I think, to just kind of get that out up front. It kind of puts them at ease that you're not here to try to sell them something and that you really want a conversation to get to know them better. And it'll help you identify, are they going to be a good referral partner or not? How to shape the meeting. Again, it's less about what you do and more about them. How can you help them? Very listening is obvious, but it's critically important. I use a note taker a lot because I like to focus on them directly, and I have a note taker. If they feel uncomfortable, I shut it off. But I listen, have the call, and then I go back and I review that note taker, like fireflies or otter or something like that, just to make sure I've picked up the points. It really helps on the second meeting when I can refer specifically to what we discussed on the first. Um, Defining and refining your elevator pitch, that short story about who you are and the value you bring, sharing best practices. And then, what additional, value can you add to the relationship? Tools, videos, articles, and so forth, and other introductions. Elevator pitches, I'm sure we're all very familiar with that. I don't want to preach to the choir, but so critical, so important, because you're going to lose people in the first 2 or 3 minutes if you just can't be concise as to what you do, who you do it for, and why it's so important. So there's a lot of tools out there to help you build that elevator pitch, and I recommend really fine tuning that. One of the things really that Sales Acceleration taught me when I first joined them is this serve first strategy. We have a servant mentality. Get to know that referral partner, get to know their business, who they serve, asking them how they can help, showing genuine interest in wanting to help their business, offering, information and education to them without asking for anything back. It's critically important, and it can make a world of difference, especially in the beginning stages of building a relationship. The other thing is what I found very helpful, number 5, which is once I've met people and understand their client profiles and their buyer personas, introducing them to other referral partners of mine, making those connections. And it goes a long way, that when I've listened to them, I want to build a relationship, but I'm also immediately starting to help them with their business and their needs. It's something I definitely recommend. Okay, so we're coming down to the end here. Last slide. The key steps in all of this and what I kind of talked about, developing, refining that ICP, so important. So many people, even businesses, even some business owners don't have a really clear definition of what their ICPs are. Developing and refining your targeted referral partners, those ideal referral partners, mapping them out. Who's the A's, the B's, the C's, and building an outreach campaign and a contact plan based on the value that you can both bring to each other. Plotting and finalizing those, creating that personalized, always thinking serving first. How can I help? What can I do to help you? Referring people to other people or to businesses, and staying top of mind. and top of mind could be newsletters, as I said, or articles, or just points of interest that you think, you find along the way that might be interesting to them and closely related to their business. So um, there's my slide here. I am more than happy to have a conversation to anybody on the call, anytime to help them work through some of these things. It's not a service I sell; it's a free service. If you're a member of Global Chamber, it's free. But I'm happy to spend 30 minutes with you and just help you think through some of these tools. And so, feel free to reach out to me. I'll take any questions if there are any questions.
Really, really an amazing summary. You've been working on this for how long to be able to have such great IP?
This right here is what Sales Acceleration primarily has built for us. This is a formula that they've put together for a lot of their advisors.
Okay.
So I've just taken it, I've taken it and kind of tweaked it to become my own. And I can tell you, it works. It's a formula that works, and you just have to be disciplined, stay on it. And making those calls initially is going to be challenging. It's very challenging for me. I said, yeah, I need to get to well over 400 before I get a dozen people that believed in me and that I believed in and wanted to work with.
How do you manage that? Do you use a CRM, and then what do you normally recommend for others?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And there are a couple of tips in there that I didn't review. The CRM is important. I treat myself as a business, and I have a funnel, and I use Pipedrive, and that's one of the CRMs I use. And what I do is I have that linked to my Zoom calls, and I'm linked to my calendar, so it's transcribed, and within the context, all the conversations are there. But when I have an initial contact, say for LinkedIn, I reach out to somebody on LinkedIn and say I'd like to, seek ideas of collaboration or explore your areas of expertise that I might be able to use as a referral. I immediately go into Pipedrive for 1 week from today and set myself a task, follow up on an intro call with Doug. And so a week later, I'll see that come up in my diary, in my calendar, and I'll say, Doug, just following up, did you happen to see my message? Would love to be able to connect to you and have a brief intro. Would you like to have a Zoom call? And so on that second message, I will generally, include a Calendly link to my diary, so they can go ahead and book a Zoom call. And it's easy, it's simple. I get a lot of responses there. They schedule it on their own time, and then we have that next call. So I use a CRM routinely just to track my activities and all the activities. And I also map out the categories of potential referral partners. So I've got my A's, my B's, and my C's as well to make sure I stay in contact with them.
There's some extraordinary people in the audience, and I'd love to be able to hear your questions and your comments from this. I see Luis, you're unmuted, and we see
No,
you.
yes. Hello. Thank you very much,
Good morning.
Dan and Doug. It's afternoon here. Thank you very much. I think it's very much interesting, and I think this is something that we cannot forget because your network of people keeps changing. No, when you get older, no, there are people that companies that are acquired bought by another, one people that retires, the other that changes business. So this is a task that you must continuously keep doing. No, and I think probably the start is the most difficult thing. No, these 400 people is probably the most difficult thing.
Just getting started, which I guess means partially, Dan, you need to have a process to get started, right? I mean, you don't need one, but if you don't have one, it turns into chaos quite quickly.
Yeah, it's very difficult. I set initially, when I first started out, I set having somewhere around 30 to 40 contacts and meetings per week, which is a lot. And some of them might be 15 or 20 minutes, but it was really, really challenging. The reality is I only got to about 20 or 25, but I really set myself, a higher target. And if you have 20 or 25 conversations every single week, things will start to happen. But it's a lot of groundwork, but so important.
Saw your comment, Dr. Pauline Crawford. What are your thoughts in addition to
Well, as I
process?
said, I
Interesting.
think a very good presentation, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the kind of precise profile process is really important. I'm not sure whether I've got the capacity and the energy to do it all. I need somebody to do it for me. That's
Yeah.
something. But I do like the idea of less is more. This is coming up a lot. It's like there's so much noise out there. How do you get a key message through? And in the past, I've often tempted to say too much or write too much. And I think it's really important to cut that down and also be selective. Would you agree?
Yes. 100%, 100%. Because if you're not selective and you're not clear on your ICP or who your referral partners, what they look like, you can waste a lot of time. Wonderful people, wonderful conversations, but you're not going to get anywhere. And
Yeah,
so being selective is really, really critical.
yeah. And I think going forward this year, that's really important to know your identity. So last Sunday I changed my LinkedIn profile, made it more simple, more direct. I did have some help from Charlie ChatGPT, I have to confess. Um, but it did help, and it really brought out some new numbers on the posts and new conversations as we had, Dan. So I think this
That's right.
idea of cutting through the noise is really important.
Yes, completely agree.
But
Thank you.
this idea of the selection sometimes is difficult because sometimes you get things from people you never thought you're going to get anything, and finally your closest friend does not give any business to you. So this is difficult to this selection sometimes gets is difficult, no? So
Mm.
You know what I found in that situation? I built some trusting relationships with people that I consider referral partners who have never referred me to anybody. But after I've gotten to a level of comfort with that person over 3, 4 months of really continually meeting for coffee or lunch, I've said to them, "Hey, well, how about a referral? How about introducing me to somebody?"
yes.
So I've been direct with them. So if there are those people who fit your profiles and that you have great relationships with, you can ask them, "Do you know anybody who you could refer me to?" And as long as you're doing the same for them, if you're delivering the value back to them as well. Again, it's not just one way; it's two ways.
I agree
But
with you. This is very important, no? To try to
yes,
go to,
yeah,
let's say, a kind of compensation, no? Because if not,
yeah, yeah,
this is critical. This is critical.
Um,
right.
I don't know, Basile, if you are available to speak, but being an expert on networking, one of the things I've learned from you that, identifying who's a key person to spend time with, this is a key part of your own process. And so, if you're able to say some words about that, because you talk about identifying people initially, but then a lot of your process is also how do you build value for the relationship overall? Does that part really resonate with you? And that's a key part of your the aspects of your process as well, aren't they?
Absolutely. I mean, it's totally on the money. I mean,
Yeah.
everything it says, this is right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So very, very good. Appreciate it. But Bill, you want to share a little bit about, I mean, how does this fit into your overall process?
Uh, it fits nicely. We just develop more the aspects talking about the person to person.
Uh-huh.
And I guess in what there's no right or wrong. We just go loosely, let him be who they want to be, let him make them as was saying, be comfortable. When we meet with them, at first, we don't even try to direct the conversation per se. But to this point, we like them to talk about themselves, what it is. We don't want to come across, we're sitting to sell anything, just as it says. They can be talking about the keys. They can be talking about this, that, the other thing. We just want to be somebody there for them. Regardless, we let them, the first meeting, they do what, they talk about whatever, we let it run, as they say rightly. And maybe they will only have 2 or 3 minutes at the end. I say, no problem, let's schedule something else. So they don't feel the pressure or anything, or they don't feel like you're thinking about getting them something or you're planning anything. It's just like talking to a friend. When you're talking to a friend,
Yeah.
you don't have an agenda. That's how I put it. And then later down the line, we correct it where we tell them what we do and whatever. We want it to feel as comfortable as they be. And that way, when we're calling them, they take the call because it's a friend calling. It's not somebody selling you something, or it's not somebody asking
Right.
you to do something. We just work heavily along that line and we give them a breather, we follow up later, but we have them, we're tracking them all the way. And in due
Mm.
time, we sit down, talk about what we do. We certainly don't want to create any appearance or impression that we are after something.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a delicate balance, isn't it, Dan? I mean, High Road Leadership by John Maxwell talks about giving for giving's sake, that you continue to give. And what I liked about what you presented was that, like that chart that you showed, and it felt to me like the way you manage it is you give, you identify people from the beginning, first of all, right, that are going to be a good fit. Then you give. And then if you're not receiving, that there is some level of scorekeeping, right? Even though high road leadership by definition is you're not really scorekeeping, but you kind of are. And
Mhm.
to your point, you have to actually ask, how about some referrals? I mean, that seems very reasonable. But then you also scale back at some point, right? When people are not really delivering. So there is a scorekeeping, right? In the whole process.
Yeah, I think it's in order to be able to ask them this, in my opinion, in my mind, you have to have a really good relationship because you don't want to be superficial and just say, I said all these things just because I want you to give me referrals. It has to be this relationship building, this trust. And I think you're better off asking once you've delivered value to them. Give it to them first,
Okay.
refer them first, give them value first. And then, over time, they'll see that. They'll see that. And then it's easier to say, hey, maybe somebody you could introduce me to. That would be helpful. But, I go into these discussions all the time, not saying, can you list me some customers and give me some context I can meet to help me build my business? It's what can I do for you? Or I found this article I thought was interesting. Or would you like to join me for this networking meeting? That is on a similar topic of what we both focus on. It's that type of thing. Or can I just buy you a cup of coffee for a catch up? That type of stuff. And I think that you got to do all those things first before you can get bold enough to say, "What can you do for me?" Ask for the order.
I'd like to make some closing comments, but to build on that for 30 seconds. Yesterday, I had almost made me cry because it was so emotionally positive. A lady who's been a member and she just disappeared, and she just reached out and asked for some help, and so she hadn't renewed, but that's okay. I said, okay, I'm just going to help. So I did help her and gave her like what I thought was just a beautiful referral for her to help her in some challenge she had. And she came back after a while, and basically the feedback was that this person she felt like wasn't the right fit. So I gave her another referral to
Ah,
her, and which I thought, probably not as good, but still, I want to help her. And so after a few days, she came back to me with this email that was this is the one that made me nearly cry yesterday. It was like, Doug, I want you to know that you're unbelievable. You're remarkable. And I'm sorry that I haven't said that the first moment I met you. And she went on just like so effusively positive, and that she said, and by the way, I'm going to renew my membership tomorrow because I really care about what you're doing. And I just want to make sure that you know that. And both of the referrals you gave me were fantastic. I'm going to go back to the first one because I think there's probably something there, and I'm going to follow up on the second one. So you have those kind
great.
of experiences too, right? That people get busy in their life, stuff happens, and sometimes your gut says this is something that I should be working on. You work it, sometimes you don't get anything out of it for some period of time, and then suddenly something goes off.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely experienced that. It's I've definitely had those experiences. And just one other note along this, referrals need to be genuine, right? You don't want to refer just for referral's sake. Like here's 10 names of people, go for it. It's got to be genuine. I know these people. I know they have a need similar to the problems that you address. And if you can be kind of surgical in your referrals and as accurate as you possibly can, it makes a much bigger impression than if you just say, "Oh, here's 5 people that are in marketing that you might want to talk to." So the quality of those referrals can really make a big difference. And it sounds like that's what you did is really get some good quality. And makes a big impression.
And then also, I think that you let her be who she wants to be. She was not happy with the first person. You went ahead and do a second one. You just
Right.
there to serve, which is what Dan was mentioning. So that spirit, I think, in the end, always win. Maybe not on a short-term basis, but medium-term, long-term, things always worked out.
Right.
It's from, I
Good
guess
point.
there's some level of science that you've talked about today, which I loved. I just loved all of that. And then the second piece of it, at the end of the day, as Basile mentions, there's a sincerity of helping that hopefully gets transmitted over. I mean, even we're all so busy, we're all got a million things, and do we make that one extra effort? And when do you make that decision to go that one extra mile? And sometimes it doesn't work out, and sometimes
Right.
it. And so you just have to kind of use your gut, I guess. What final comments would you like to leave us with, Dan?
These are practices that I follow and I believe in, and they're not easy. Some days, making these outreach contacts are challenging. It's tiring, and a lot of people just don't reply. People you genuinely see that you want to be partners with, you try and you try, and they don't reply. And then you have to be somewhat thick-skinned, but you can't give up. You can't give up because it is a formula, in my opinion, for success. And I really believe in it. And as I said earlier, if there's anybody who would like some help and just talk through some of these things, I'm more than happy to help and do that. But thank you all very much for your time.
Really, really brilliant. This is something we all do. The fact that Dan has a scientific project or process to be able to do it, I think is valuable for all of us. So please feel free and you should know Dan, know the process that he's using, and get connected. If it's not you that can directly benefit from working with Dan, someone
Yeah.
will be able to benefit from this. So please make that
Yeah.
connection. Thank you, Dan. Really appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Sure. My
The-
pleasure.
Dan, can you
love
put
that.
information in the chat as well, if you could?
Yeah,
Can you put information in the chat also, Dan?
Sure. My contact details?
Yeah, in the chat. Can you, please?
Yeah, sure.
yeah, we'll leave the room open for a couple minutes, and so that Dan
Sure.
contact info. Yeah, Basile, you and Dan are a natural fit for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Of you. I see Alex in the call, and Barbara, thank you for the comment. I totally agree. This has been very valuable. Eduardo Gonzalez, another leader here in the room that works on oh my God, how many people are in your pipeline? This whole process, I think, is incredibly valuable. Krumpiv from Bulgaria. This is something that you know very well because you've got referral partners all over the world, and so hopefully you've learned, and hopefully you can make the connection with Dan as well. Is that the right info, Dan? you're in,
Yeah.
you're outside.
Yeah. I'm just going to drop my LinkedIn profile as well. It would take 2
That'd be good.
seconds.
That would be great.
Copy. And there's my LinkedIn profile. So email, phone number, and LinkedIn profile.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Will Endear is in sales as well, and Fleur Briscoe. That's a name that sounds familiar, but I didn't see it in the database, so I don't think you're a member yet. But feel free to jump in. And I don't know Phoebe or Russell, and so thank you for. Is Russell someone you work with, Russell? Russell Towsey is his name. Is that someone within your network, Dan?
Yeah. Russell's my colleague with Sales Acceleration up in Sheffield.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, Russell, thank you for joining today, and looking forward to understanding more. You're in Sheffield?
Yes, just outside Sheffield.
Okay, very good. Well, welcome to Global Chamber. And what did you think of the program? You know all this inside and out.
He knows it. He knows it well.
Yeah, I've already messaged Dan, said great job, and I want to borrow his presentation.
Very good. Well, thank you, and please feel free to connect in. We'd love to learn more about what you're doing as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
Excellent. And thanks, Dan, for all your referrals to me. Thanks, Doug.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
my pleasure. Nice to see everybody. Look forward to talking with you. Thank you. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you. Great presentation. Thanks,
Thanks.
Mike.